Washing machines under the kitchen counter, bathroom lights on a string, and sinks that force you to choose between glacier water and lava. I knew British homes were going to be different. I did not know they were going to feel like endurance tests. But after living in the UK for more than a year, I realized none of this weirdness is random. It all comes from history, weather, old wiring, old plumbing, and a national talent for turning inconvenience into a virtue. Today, we are counting down 10 British home habits that make absolutely no sense to Americans, at least until you understand where they came from. Number 10. The washing machine in the kitchen. This was the one that broke my brain on day one. I walked into my first British flat, looked around for a laundry room, checked the hallway, checked the bathroom, opened a cupboard, and found nothing. So I asked where the washer was, and the letting agent just pointed at a little white door under the kitchen counter like I was the stupid one. And there it was, right next to the oven. The machine that cleans your dirty socks, gym clothes, and underwear was sitting under the same counter where I was supposed to chop vegetables. To an American, that feels wrong on a spiritual level. Laundry belongs in a basement, a utility room, a garage, or at the very least a closet with a door you can close. It does not belong next to the place where dinner happens. But once you look at British housing history, it starts to make sense. A lot of urban homes in the UK were built long before modern appliances existed. In Victorian and Edwardian houses, plumbing was usually concentrated at the back of the house around the kitchen. That is where the pipes were, that is where the drains were. And when washing machines became common in the 1950s and 60s, Britain was not exactly in the mood to start rebuilding houses from scratch. The country had come out of a war, money was tight, and people were fitting new machines into old spaces. So the washing machine went wherever the water already was, which meant the kitchen. The logic is historical, the experience is still insane. Brits will casually stand there making tea while the washer starts hammering away like it is trying to escape the cabinet. In America, that sound would mean something has gone wrong. In Britain, it is apparently just ambience. And once you accept that the washing machine lives in the kitchen, you start asking the next obvious question. Fine, you washed the clothes. Now what are you supposed to do with them? Number 9. Drying clothes on a rack in the middle of the house. Americans treat the washer and dryer like a married couple. They come together, they stay together. In Britain, though, the dryer is optional at best and suspicious at worst. Instead, the classic British answer is the clothes horse. It is basically a folding metal rack that turns your living room into a part-time laundromat. You wash your clothes in the kitchen, then you hang them across this giant frame and leave them there for what feels like the rest of the week. The first time I saw this in someone's home, I thought maybe they were in the middle of some temporary crisis. They were not. This was just the system. Damp jeans, wet socks, t-shirts hanging beside the sofa. Totally normal. Again, there is a reason. Dryers take space. British homes often do not have much of that. Dryers also eat electricity, and electricity in the UK has been expensive enough that running a heated drum for an hour can feel like burning cash. Add in a strong cultural instinct toward not wasting energy, and the dryer starts to look less like a necessity and more like an extravagance. There is also a moral layer to it. Plenty of Brits genuinely believe air drying is better for the fabric, better for the environment, and better for the household budget. Slower, yes, but somehow more righteous. The downside is that all that moisture has to go somewhere. So now the house is full of damp air, the windows start collecting condensation, and the whole place smells like warm fabric softener and effort, which in Britain is apparently a comforting smell. And if that feels chaotic, wait until you realize the country's relationship with appliances gets even stranger. And honestly, if you love these little deep dives where I go fully down the rabbit hole so you do not have to, you should probably join the channel membership, because the members get the fun side of this channel too. They get closer access, extra content, behind the scenes stuff, and the kind of little details I usually cannot fit into the main videos. So if you are sitting there thinking, okay, I actually like her, I like this vibe, and I want more of these slightly unhinged breakdowns, the join button is right there. Come be part of the inner circle. It is cozy, it is fun, and yes, you will absolutely get more of me roasting strange cultural habits in the sweetest possible way. Anyway, let's keep going because somehow the next one is even more ridiculous. Number 8. The outlet has an off switch. I thought my toaster was broken for a full week. I plugged it in, pushed the lever down, and nothing happened. Then a friend came over, reached behind the machine, flicked a tiny switch on the wall socket, and suddenly the thing worked. In America, the outlet is live. You plug something in, it gets power. In Britain, the wall itself has trust issues. You do not just plug an appliance in, you authorize it. At first, this seems like pointless extra work, but then you get into the history, and it is actually one of the smarter things the British ever did. After the Second World War, copper was in short supply, so the UK leaned heavily into a ring main system to save material while wiring homes. British outlets also run on around 240 volts, which is a lot more intense than the 120 volts Americans are used to. More power means more danger, and more danger means you need better safety design. That is why British plugs are huge, heavy, and built like medieval weapons. It is also why socket switches became standard. Cut the power at the wall before unplugging the appliance, and you reduce the risk of a bad electrical arc. So the engineering logic is solid. What fascinates me is the psychology layered on top of it. Plenty of British people still switch the socket off even when the appliance itself is off, because culturally it feels reckless not to. There is this lingering wartime brain that whispers, do not waste electricity, do not be careless, do not tempt fate. It is half engineering, half inherited national paranoia, and once you see that, the next British electrical habit makes a lot more sense, even though it feels even stranger. Number 7. The bathroom is treated like an active crime scene. When I first moved over, I walked into the bathroom with a hairdryer and started looking for an outlet. There was nothing near the mirror, nothing by the sink, nothing anywhere. Then I looked up and saw the light switch. Not on the wall, hanging from the ceiling on a string. That was the moment I realized Britain does not think of a bathroom as a normal room. It thinks of it as a high-risk electrical incident waiting to happen. In the US, bathrooms have outlets by the sink. We use GFCI protection, except that adults can be trusted with a hairdryer and move on with our lives. In the UK, standard sockets are generally banned from bathrooms, except for those tiny shaver outlets that look like they were designed for one very specific man in 1987. The reason comes back again to voltage. British electrical systems are powerful enough that the combination of water, bare skin, and bad luck is something regulators take very seriously. So the wiring rules divide the bathroom into zones, treating every section around the bath and sink with extreme caution. And the pull cord is the perfect British solution. Put the switch mechanism up in the ceiling, away from wet hands, then attach a piece of string to it like you are summoning assistants in a haunted manor house. It looks ridiculous, it sounds ridiculous, but British people look at American bathrooms the way Americans look at people lighting fireworks indoors. They cannot understand how we survive. To them, standing near a sink with a plugged-in hairdryer is not grooming. It is a death wish, which brings us to the sink itself, because British bathrooms do not stop being strange once you survive the lighting. Number 6. The separate hot and cold taps. If there is one thing Americans complain about almost immediately in older British homes, it is this. You walk up to the sink wanting warm water, and instead you are offered two choices: ice melt from the Arctic or lava from the core of the earth. There is no graceful middle, there is no simple lever, there are just two separate taps sitting there, like they are refusing to speak to each other. And that forces you into one of two bizarre rituals. Either you plug the sink, fill the basin with a mix of both, and wash your hands in a little pool like it is 1910, or you do that frantic back and forth motion under both streams, trying to mathematically average the temperature on your skin. It feels absurd. But once again, history is lurking behind the nonsense. Traditionally, cold water in many British homes came directly from the mains and was considered clean and drinkable. Hot water often came from a storage tank up in the loft. Those tanks were not always sealed the way modern systems are, which meant the water quality could be questionable. Dust could get in, insects could get in, there are endless horror stories about dead animals getting in. Because of that setup, there were rules designed to stop contaminated hot water from flowing backward and mixing with the clean mains supply. Separate taps were not just a style choice, they were a practical response to an older plumbing reality. The weird part is that the plumbing has changed faster than the habit. A lot of modern homes now use combi boilers and cleaner sealed systems, but the taps remain. Because Britain is a country where outdated infrastructure can become aesthetic tradition in about 2 generations. And British people really will defend this. Some still do not fully trust hot water from the bathroom sink. Others simply like the look because it feels classic, which is a very British way of saying, yes, it is inconvenient, but it has character. And if you think that is irrational, Wait until you see how an entire closet became a treasured household feature. Number 5. The airing cupboard. The first time someone proudly showed me an airing cupboard, I did not know how to respond. They opened this small hallway closet as if they were revealing a luxury amenity, and inside was a big hot water cylinder surrounded by shelves of towels and bedding. My first thought was, that is not a feature. That is where your water heater lives. But to a lot of British households, the airing cupboard is genuinely beloved. It is warm, it is dry, it turns slightly damp towels into perfectly usable towels. It gives your sheets that strangely satisfying toasted feel in winter. And once you understand how damp so many British homes can get, the whole thing starts sounding less like a quirk and more like a survival tool. Historically, this made perfect sense. If your house is cold, your dryer is either weak or non-existent, and your weather seems personally committed to moisture, then any little pocket of steady heat becomes valuable. The airing cupboard was not just storage, it was a drying chamber and a mildew defense system. That is the bit Americans miss. In the US, the water heater is usually hidden away because the machine is not part of daily life. In Britain, the warm closet becomes part of the household routine. And I will give the British this one. Pulling a warm towel out of an airing cupboard on a freezing morning is excellent. It is one of the few times British home design feels like it is actively helping you instead of testing you. But the airing cupboard only exists because the broader house has a damp problem. And that leads directly to one of the most revealing British rituals of all. If you are enjoying this so far, subscribe, because once you understand how British homes work, you start noticing this stuff everywhere. Number 4. Opening all the windows even when it is freezing outside. This is the ritual that convinced me British people and Americans are living in two different realities. You can wake up on a brutal winter morning, step into the hallway, and find every window in the house wide open while your host eats breakfast in a sweater, like nothing is wrong. To an American, this is madness. If it is cold outside, you close the windows, turn on the heat, and trap the warmth inside the house where it belongs. But British people are obsessed with airing the place out. They want a draft through the house, they want fresh air, and they are willing to become physically uncomfortable to get it. The reason is not just cultural, it is structural. Many British homes are brick, and brick handles moisture differently than the timber-framed houses common across much of the United States. Add constant rain, indoor drying racks, kettles boiling, people breathing, and weak ventilation, and suddenly you have a lot of water vapor trapped inside a very old building. Then that moisture hits a cold wall or window and turns into condensation. And condensation, in Britain, is not just annoying, it is the first step toward mold. So the national answer became simple. Open the windows every day, even when the weather makes that decision look insane. And there is a psychological element too. British people often associate fresh cold air with cleanliness and health. A sealed house feels stuffy to them. Americans, on the other hand, are perfectly happy to live inside a controlled bubble of heating and air conditioning. Neither side thinks they are weird. Both sides think the other one lives like a hostage. Which is why this next habit makes British people feel efficient and Americans feel physically ill. Number 3. The plastic washing up bowl inside the sink. This thing inspires a level of rage in Americans that is hard to describe. You walk into a British kitchen, see a perfectly functional sink, and then notice that inside the sink is another smaller plastic sink. That is the washing up bowl, a tub inside the actual sink, usually in a color no one should have to see before coffee. Then comes the second shock. They fill that bowl with hot soapy water, wash the dishes in it, and often place them on the drying rack without fully rinsing them under running water. To an American brain, that feels like eating off a plate seasoned with detergent and defeat. In the US, if you hand wash dishes, you scrub them and then rinse them properly. In Britain, the logic is different. Historically, the bowl protected delicate dishes from hard ceramic sinks. It also used a fixed amount of hot water, which mattered in a country where heated water was not something you wasted casually. So the bowl became normal, not just a workaround, but a proper domestic object. The soap issue is where the cultural gap gets hilarious. Some British people genuinely see rinsing as unnecessary excess because the soap itself is there to clean. An American hears that and immediately imagines tasting dish liquid on every fork for the rest of their life. This, to me, is one of the clearest examples of how British home habits are shaped by frugality. The point is not comfort. The point is control. Use less water. Use the space you have. Make do. Accept a little inconvenience and call it sensible. And once you start seeing that pattern, even the front door starts making more sense. Number 2, the mail slot cut directly into the front door. At first, this seems charming, very British, very storybook. The post arrives with a little metallic clatter, and the letters land neatly on the doormat inside the hallway. Then you live with it for a while and realize this system is insane. In America, the mail goes in a box outside the house. That is where mail belongs, at the edge of the property, not through a literal hole in your front door. Because that is what the British letterbox is. A slot cut straight through the barrier that is supposed to keep wind, noise, and weather out of your home. Then they act surprised when the hallway is freezing and spend money on brushes, flaps, and draft stoppers trying to fix the hole they intentionally created. The historical reason is actually neat. After postal reform in the 19th century and the rise of cheap prepaid mail, the Royal Mail suddenly had to deliver huge volumes of letters quickly. Postmen could not waste time knocking and waiting for someone to answer every door, so the door slot became a practical solution. But what fascinates me is what it says about British attitudes toward institutions. There is an almost casual acceptance that the postal system has permission to reach directly into the threshold of your home every day. Americans are much more perimeter-based. We like a clear line between public service and private property. Also, if you own a dog, the British system becomes daily warfare. The flap rattles, a hand appears, paper slides through, and the dog responds like the kingdom is under attack. And somehow even this is not the strangest thing British people have done in the name of domestic comfort. Number 1, carpeted bathrooms. I still cannot believe this is real. The first time I saw wall-to-wall carpet in a British bathroom, I actually stopped in the doorway and stared at the floor, trying to process what I was looking at. Toilet, bathtub, sink, plush carpet, all in the same room. To Americans, this is not a design choice, it is evidence. Bathrooms in the US are wet zones. They are made for steam, splashes, cleaning products, and all the other realities of human life. That is why we use tile, vinyl, and surfaces that can be disinfected. The idea of putting absorbent fabric around a toilet sounds less like decor and more like a failed experiment. But in Britain, especially in older homes, bathroom carpet once had a real appeal. And as usual, the answer starts with cold. For a long time, many British bathrooms were freezing. Poor insulation, weak heating, cold floors, single-pane windows, and constant worries about damp made the bathroom one of the least comfortable rooms in the house. Then synthetic carpets got cheaper in the 1970s, and suddenly people had a solution. Cover the floor, make it warmer underfoot. On a purely immediate level, I get it. Stepping onto warm carpet feels better than stepping onto freezing linoleum on a winter morning. What I do not get is the optimism required to believe this will remain hygienic. Older Brits will sometimes defend bathroom carpet by saying, well, you just keep it dry, as if the problem is not the concept itself, but a personal failure of discipline. That confidence is unbelievable. This is where the British home reaches its final form. Immediate comfort wins, and long-term sanitation becomes negotiable. The house is cold, so you adapt. The system is odd, so you respect the tradition. The carpet is damp, so maybe you just do not think about it too hard. And that really is the whole story, because once you step back, these habits stop looking random. The washing machine in the kitchen, the drying rack by the sofa, the switched outlets, the bathroom pull cord, the separate taps, the airing cupboard, the morning window ritual, the bowl inside the sink, the mail slot in the door, even the cursed bathroom carpet. None of it came out of nowhere. These are the fingerprints of history, old plumbing layouts, post-war shortages, electrical rules built around higher voltage, water systems designed around storage tanks, damp weather, brick houses, expensive energy, and a national culture that has learned over generations to treat mild domestic suffering as both normal and somehow morally good. In America, we tend to force the house to match our lifestyle. We want the environment controlled. We want convenience built in. We want the room to do the obvious thing. In Britain, the relationship feels older and stranger. The house makes the rules, and you learn them. You wear the sweater, you open the window, you pull the ceiling cord, you negotiate with the taps, you dry your jeans beside the television, and pretend that is not insane. And I will be honest, some of these things still drive me crazy. I do not think I will ever make peace with unrinsed dishes or carpet near a toilet. But after living here and after seeing the history behind all of it, I understand why British homes are the way they are. They are not designed for comfort in the American sense. They are designed by survival, compromise, climate, and habit, which is frustrating, sometimes ridiculous, but also kind of impressive. Still freezing, though, still absolutely freezing.